I mean, I don't know. To me, like, I mean, sure, I do not disagree with the fact that there can be scenarios in PoE 1 where that's not the case, but I would still say it's basically mandatory there for them, like, for most of your PoE playing career. I would say that you're going to be wanting to get movement speed on your boots, you know?
I would even argue, like, the single best boot in PoE 1, which is the Ralakesh and Patience, they don't have movement speed on them. And, like, they're still considered, like, pretty much the best boot.
Right. But, I mean, isn't it fundamentally then just the back to the question of, like, you want to move faster?
Yeah, for sure. It is.
Sure. So I mean, I guess that would be the so really it's kind of
all the PoE Andes are the opinion that of course they are because it's all streamers that.
But I mean,
PoE
whether or not it's implicit or based on the mod or anything, it's just
I've agreed with some of the stuff.
That's really the question.
Which comes back to the we need to have those discussions.
From a video game player,
it's similar.
A difference in PoE 2 is that the implicits of uniques, especially things like life spray, will scale into the endgame. Where, like, if I find a life spray on my level 80 character now, it's never going to be usable early game. But the explicits on life spray,
I'm stuck.
And a lot of other caster uniques and things like that, they don't scale either. So, have you explored the idea of the actual explicit scaling or the implicit not scaling so that you can find these like twink leveling uniques? Like, what are your thoughts around the uniques there?
I don't think we would want uniques to have the explicit scale like that. That's kind of not what uniques are about. So
uniques suck in this game.
Change my mind.
The bigger questions about whether or not the implicit, the skill should or shouldn't level up with the item.
Well,
I mean, it currently does, right?
It does.
It does. But something that could be interesting is that if you find a life spray on level 80 character, it can scale up to that level, so it would scale with your character. That would make it feel really good as a leveling item, for example. That you can use it at level 1, you hit level 3.
I really don't like that kind of thing, the whole like item that just scales with your character. Like, I don't think that we want to move in a direction where you'll have less times when you put items on your character as you level up. Like, that doesn't feel like the right direction to me.
But there's also more whether, and there's a second part to that, which is whether or not
my level 15,
life spray should even have high level requirements ever. Which is a thing that's come up a bit.
That's a separate question. That it's come up. I'm kind of not quite sure about that one at the moment.
That's fair.
Well, there'll be more discussion.
I mean, so one thing that was proposed and as a potential solution to this is that just the like, I feel like maybe you didn't like this. I can't remember who didn't like this. Someone didn't like this. Because I proposed that we make it so that the implicit skill on uniques has like a cap level, but then that does level up as you go through the game. Like it's not that it levels up. It's that like it is capped to the level of where you are.
Yeah.
So that way, even if you get a level 80 life sprig, you can still equip it at low levels, and then and then that will go with you effectively. And somehow I see that as different from like your items changing as you level up. That to me, that's not like quite the same thing. So like that would potentially be an option. I don't remember why we did. There was some reason why we didn't do that, but like it might still be on the cards.
That's fair.
Wait, so you're saying if you find it at level 80,
I'm saying if you find it at level 80. 16 skill, but you can still equip it. It doesn't change the level requirement, but then the skill gets down leveled to the maximum that it can be for the.
Oh sure,
Yeah,
I thought that's what he's proposed just a second ago, but
no, he's talking about the explicit scaling.
No, there's a second thing there.
The second one was that, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Maybe I misunderstood then. Okay, right. So in that case, then sure. Like,
I mean, I would personally prefer to just be like, you can drop a low-level life sprig, and that's you use a low-level.
Yeah, but I don't love that either, honestly.
But I don't hate that.
Yeah.
And like, there's a part of me that also kind of liked the idea that there were some uniques that were more valuable to find at lower levels, which I thought was kind of interesting. But I don't know whether players actually like that or not, so that's just kind of like a random other
Nope, I fucking hate it.
But
I don't hate that.
Yeah, I was just curious, because we do find them a lot. Another question is about the minion resurrect timer. It keeps resetting like the entire timer every time a monster dies. And that can feel very frustrating. So I wondered, how do you feel about that? That the entire timer resets?
Well, if you don't have that, it feels a lot more frustrating. Let me tell you. Like that was how it was until we changed it, and like it was so bad. Because what happens is that like the monsters, that your minions just die one at a time, and then they can never really accomplish anything, and it's just like trust me, that was a buff, that change. Like that was a massive improvement. So yeah, like until you experience it the other way, like yeah, like you will understand if you play it the other way. It's
There
really
might
bad.
be an intermediary there. I want to explore some options.
Well, it's
For
also-
example, like instead of resetting the entire timer, it adds to the timer based on like the cost of the minion or something like that. We might be able to do something like that. So
But
it
I don't
doesn't-
know. But that's not going to fix the fundamental issue, which is that minions work best when there's lots of minions. And so the issue that we had is that you just get into a situation where they just trickle in and die one at a time.
No
and
matter what, they have to revive all at the same time.
that has to happen. Yes.
I'm just saying it could be that like, okay, let's say
Oh, I
everyone's
see what you're
dead but
saying.
one.
Right. So it doesn't. It increases a bit, but not as much.
And
Okay,
so
I
instead
understand.
of like, all about to
Sure.
revive except for one, oh, he died. And
yeah,
now
that's
6 seconds again.
that actually is viable, and that
Okay.
maybe is a change we could make.
And like, would you ever be open to adding a keystone that changes the behavior?
I was actually thinking about that earlier today, and I mostly, like the troll in me, was like, we should do this just so the players can see how bad it is.
Yeah.
but yeah, that was probably a negative thought I shouldn't be having.
No, that's fair. I mean, I think a lot of people would like
yeah.
to see it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I think the thing Mark just said is much more reasonable, and so we should probably do something more like that. Yeah.
Convocation, is that something on the table? It's like maybe a spirit skill or something?
I don't love it.
That's fair.
I don't love it.
Um,
I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
I could see a world where
one's-
it's
yeah.
evasion cooldown, or you have to earn it, or something like that. If they're not,
If it to go in, it would have to be different enough that players probably wouldn't see it as convocation anymore. Like, I suspect that's kind of the reality. Like, yeah,
Right.
like as Mark said, you'd have to add some kind of conditions, or you'd have to do something, and it's like at that point, it's not even doing the thing the players want it for anyway. So it's like,
yeah.
you know, like
that being said,
Yeah.
it might still just be better, and there might be some room for it.
I don't love it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I don't
know,
love it.
I know.
Like, I would much rather find a better solution to that issue.
Okay. When it comes to map completion, obviously there's been some changes this patch. But one thing that easily feels the worst is when there is one monster just like really far away, and the checkpoint system doesn't really cut it there. Would you consider making the completion of a map be like 90% of the rares instead of 100? Because the bad feeling is very
Just
often
do what
tied
Diablo
to
does. Just have them port to
one
you.
monster, the
Like,
other
we're near
side of
you.
the map, and I
Easy.
have to like do
Like,
so
actually
much backtracking.
Well, I want to solve this problem. I don't know that that's the answer, but I understand the issue. Like, there's been a few.
Yeah, not a
straight
top,
up,
you just
we
need it,
straight up
that's what's in here.
discussed last night that like
Well,
just having the minimap icons on.
There was a
always
discussion of
prob-
doing
That'd be
icons on
good.
all the time, right? Because you're not gonna miss the monsters if you see them.
The
in
main
front.
reason for that is like the current way it works is that it's like when 200 remaining they appear, and on some maps that's like you kill 3 packs and they appear, and other maps it's like you got to clear 80% of it before they appear, and honestly that's kind of weird and bad anyway.
Yeah.
It's just that we kind of want to, like, the main thing we're worried about
Yeah.
with that change is the whole you just play on the minimap, like you're not
Yeah.
even looking into the game.
But
and
is
so-
that how
But I
everyone
think that
plays?
fear.
I'm very in favor of that.
well,
I love that
okay,
change.
like,
The
do we
minimap.
just turn off?
Yeah,
like,
literally just showing from the start. Like I love that initially for sure. At least for me.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you said you loved the idea of not looking at the game and only playing off the minimap.
one
I
of the
kinda do that
tests,
anyway.
Yeah.
One of the like when we were trying to find that NVIDIA crash,
Yeah.
the one of our developers like tried playing with just the graphics turned off, like they just had the minimap, and they played literally to the end of Act 2 with just no graphics, and they're like, and the funny thing was like, what the hell? How did you even manage to get through 2 acts like that? And he's like, oh, Huntress OP. I was like, okay, like this is so it is actually possible to play entirely with the minimap, no graphics at all, apparently.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
That's fun. No, I would love that.
Yeah, I want to change that imminently. The thing with the 90% thing you're suggesting, by the way, there is like, let's say the map only has 3 rares. Is it just
Right.
2 out of 3? Does
Sure.
it like round down? Does it round up? Is it if there's only 2 rares? Is it literally just
Probably
one?
just enable seeing the res on the
I agree.
It's probably
I
better
like that.
just to do
I
that.
agree.
I like that. Another quick question about Delirium. It seems very fast. Obviously, we're a bit slower now. Any thoughts on Delirium speed?
I very specifically made a number of builds and tested them just before this 020 release, and I was actually surprised how well I was doing. And I was like, okay, like I thought this was a big problem, and I was like, I'll just actually go and actually test it myself. So it could be like, okay, here's I'd like to know a bit more here, I guess, which is like, is it certain maps over others?
Yeah,
Because
100%. Like, because it
Okay,
still
so
expands like
there's
a
a good-
donut, right?
Yeah, which we do, and we do kind of have to balance it around probably the bottom. Maybe it's, yeah, sure. There's probably a point where it's balanced around an assumption of like being more acceptable maps instead of the worst ones, and so I just need to shift that assumption and then change it. But yeah, I did specifically personally test this on a number of characters pre-020, and I was actually I was like, I expected it to be way worse than it was. That being said, I wasn't using like a massive range of maps for testing that. I was like, you know, probably 5 or 6 different things on many different characters. So, yeah, sure, I will look at that as well. I'll add it to the today list. It's going to be a big day.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys doing this. So, obviously, PoE, you're not necessarily tied to like the warrior being melee, right? Like right now I'm playing artillery ballista. Would it be possible to implement some sort of favored system that I can just tick like artillery ballista with a little heart on it, so then when I go to like level up those gems, I don't have to in the bottom left search artillery ballista and untick the...
I would suggest just having a tab for equipped gems would be the way to do that.
Yeah.
Like you just have a tab that just shows you the equipped gems. You just click on
Perfect
and you level up that way.
Yeah. So all the classes, then my gems, and then all gems. That's probably what it should be. Yeah.
Another question. The Smith's Hammer ability. I was watching. I have not used it myself, but I saw Quinn69 using it, and it looked pretty painful with like a little like tink, tink, and then going out and hitting twice. Any improvements to that?
So there were meant to be some changes that were made to this that I even specifically spoke about, I think, with maybe Darth and Gazzy or whatever when we had that last one. Yeah. And those changes didn't occur. They have occurred locally. They should be in a imminent patch coming out. Awesome. Like that's, it somehow got missed, I think, or I don't know. I actually don't know what happened there, but that was a sheer mistake. Straight up.
All good. So there are multiple skills that can use chargers. A few players have reported that like they might want to use chargers on a specific skill. Would there be a way to like deactivate that a skill uses chargers, but you still want to use that skill, but you don't want it to be empowered?
This was something that came up like probably about
that would be nice for
days
Huntress
before we shipped. Actually, with
you was everything fucking.
The obvious case is barrage on the Huntress, right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Like whether or not you want to do that. So I think like I'd have to look into whether or not this is going to be okay, but we could have a support gem that does that, that like gives some other power boost but says it can't consume charges or something, and then that way you could use that with barrage if you wanted to disable it for that or something like that. So I think that'd probably be the way.
Warn you.
But I have to think about exactly what that should be, but something along those lines would be the way.
Should work.
Yeah.
Sir,
I have a little like just interesting question about how do you feel like class identity revolves more around weapons, right? Because like I'm a warrior build, but a lot of people would inherently think like warrior is maces, but yeah, like the class identity is more around the weapons themselves, and I was curious how you feel about that.
Well, we explicitly moved to having 12 classes partly because of that, like to make that the case. Like we want that, and this is actually was driven part like, I mean, so when we were talking about like adding weapon types and so on, there was this thing where we're like, okay, if you're, you know what it actually was? It's okay. So we had the spear base type, and we're like, okay, because this is like way back, like a long time ago, and we're like, okay, what is gonna make a person who selects a ranger ever switch to spears and do that? That's just incredibly unlikely to actually happen. It's like ultimately the purpose of the classes at the start are kind of to give you a stereotype to like to go to. Now you don't have to follow that, obviously, like everything's open, but giving players like a thing where they're like, okay, like I know what I'm gonna do, like I'm gonna do this thing. It's like it's kind of important for new players to have that happen. So I think it is overall very positive and kind of like what
there's a little extra content ticker on the side now.
And I mean, like an evidence of that in PoE 1 is like, yeah, players who select ranger, like even though there's all this whole thing about being able to become a melee ranger, like it takes a long time before someone would even experiment with that if they're a new player. Like they just wouldn't even cross their mind to like change weapon type like that once they've already started. So effectively just due to that, we needed to have some way to make it so that, you know, from the very beginning, you kind of know, like you've got some idea in your head about what kind of thing.
IDR.
Yeah. The next question is about corrupted items, and you added, in my opinion, a very fun new unique strongbox. Actually, whoever made the Venter strongbox, chef's kiss. Love that thing. Please put it in POE1 as well. Coolest thing ever. But I find corrupted items a little frustrating too, due to quality and sockets. I don't know if the answer is just like that they always have quality and sockets, but obviously it's items that we can't recombinate anyway. And I just want to hear your thoughts on a balance pass from that. It's very frustrating to get a really cool unique that is, or rare that is effectively useless.
Yeah, something needs to change there. Like it isn't right.
We actually removed some corrupted drops before 020 went out, and then because we were like, wait, hold on, getting corrupted items just sucks.
Yeah.
Like this isn't a good thing you want. So like corrupting an item of your choice is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we just straight up were like, we need to just start removing the corrupted drops and find a different way or a different item mechanic or do something with them.
Yeah. Cool.
This 100% just like, what is this random white corrupted item on the ground? Like that is never going to be of use to anyone.
Box?
Right.
Yeah.
What?
So, we just need to fix that for sure.
Cool. Is there a possibility of the runes being added to the currency stash tab?
I don't know if we need waystones currently. Like they actually drop
I
insane dropping.
believe we would. So what was
We're adding a Socketables affinity.
Yeah. You're the one that costs 2 million gold.
We're adding a bunch of affinities. I think it's like Socketables, fragments, which will include tablets.
Yeah.
And obviously fragments. Breach and or catalysts.
Cool.
Expedition and thus also logbooks and the currency. You know, we're adding a whole bunch of them. I think there's 5, 6, 7 maybe different affinities that we're meant to be adding within like, you know, I would expect to see that within a week probably is my like guess. We're not going to add that. This is like currently it has the whole you have to have the stash tab in order to have the affinity, and we're like having to divorce that a little bit so that we can just have the affinities with because the tabs take longer to make. And so that we're doing that work currently, and I would expect to have all of that. So you can use your premium quads, whatever, you know, to stash all of those.
I kind of want to build into strong boxes.
Actually, almost through with all of my questions here. So this isn't something, sadly, that I've been able to interact too much with. But I wanted to talk a little bit about recombinators anyway, and just see if you guys have looked into the data a little bit. Obviously, I've seen a clip of, for example, Karn having like the 0.91 chance to recombinate. What do you guys think of recombinator?
Strong box guys? No, they reworked them, they buffed them, and they added like 4 new unique ones.
Yeah, that's kind of waiting for more info and data.
Actually, kind of poggers now.
I did worry that there'd be that people would start seeing those very low values because they're using extremely rare.
Rogue Exiles are honestly pretty fucking lucrative too.
Or numbers of mods and getting like, oh my god, it says less than 1% or less than 2. This whole system sucks.
There was a real like.
Well, you know, you can respec Atlas, right?
I feel like every time we've ever even looked at them, they've always got this thing of like this tension between like they're so OP and yet also they look so underpowered. Like when they've got this like horrible tension like that. However, what I do think that this system is compared to the previous one is so much better is that if you're using them for the like low number of mod cases, then like you can get relatively good weights. But we do have the ability to do more specific balance here if we want to. So like we'll just adjust it. Like honestly, I have to admit, like I haven't even recombinated anything on live myself yet. So like, you know, like it's just not it's not I can't really say anything about.
That's fair. It's something I haven't.
Right. Like I just don't know how it feels enough, you know.
There were two major item systems that I was like expecting to get a bunch of feedback on and then would calibrate. One was recombinating, and the other, which I am very thoroughly looking for, and maybe you have some opinions on it, is how the new map drop progression works. And I know there is two. There's one thing I changed last night, which is to make it a bit easier to get guaranteed maps from the fixed last rare and last final boss. But the other thing is there is currently a bug which I saw, which is sometimes the boss's drop isn't +1 level, which I don't know how that happens, but I saw that bug. But assuming those are fixed, I am very curious to know and kind of just get people's feeling on that. I've seen some people get through the tiers very, very quickly, which is fine because they have proven that they can, and that's fine, and they weren't at the whims of the RNG as much. But I'm looking for a lot of feedback on that, and I'm hoping to start getting a bit more of that as people get into endgame.
I have anecdotally heard people telling me that they're happier with how endgame is now than how it was in 0.1.
I have also heard that, but again, very anecdotally. So
especially when it comes to sustain, I'm the wrong person to ask because I I was shocked at one of the previous podcasts when people were saying they were struggling with sustain. So I thought it was funny when you basically said skill issue.
That was also the case for us, which is why we changed it.
So that's why we just were like, let's fully redo this.
So I'm the wrong person to ask for about sustain, and obviously there's no issues for me with sustain now. I've talked to my community a little about this, and it was pretty split with the new, like, how you unlock Atlas points. A lot of people didn't like it. I personally like it a lot more. I had a strong dislike for the do 10 tier 1 maps, do 10 tier 2 maps. So I love the new way, but a lot of people in my community didn't. So you're definitely gonna have to get more feedback there. I'm just not 100% sure. I think the issue that people in my chat were saying was that they were struggling to see the corruption. So maybe even like some sort of indicator of like not an arrow, but like more.
When you say C, do you mean in the, like out of the fog of war or in the fog of war?
Both, I guess. Like just. Like, do you know the way we have the beams towards the pillars right now?
Yeah,
I guess people
want, that's why I'm asking. Well, like, are you saying just like physically you don't see them when they're revealed? Or
just before the patch went out, we were like, we actually did go, do we want these to be visible in Fog of War or not?
Yeah.
And they were, by the way. And then we were like, I think maybe actually we don't, because you're going to spend too much of your playtime just looking in Fog of War, and I want you to be looking in the revealed section more. And so that's why I did change it. So that some things are in Fog of War, but it's like not that many. So towers and citadels being that. And then
you could have like a very short distance maybe. Or something like that,
but we don't currently have a distance in Fog of War. You can see it's just either it is or it isn't. And so maybe we can mess with that and have it be like, you can see Makes sense. You know, some depth in or something like that, just to make it a bit better. But
but
I mean,
at
it's
least
good feedback.
Myself,
it's
good
like to know.
Yeah.
So that's about the Atlas points. If you do get any more, and of course, if you happen to get a collective from your community in particular as well, and of course, people are going to post it. You have my Discord as well. Just tell me, because I'm very, very curious about the map drops and how people feel about now that it's like way more deterministic for both sustaining and going up the tiers.
It's gonna be a rough map.
Now, obviously, not a huge amount of people collectively as in the end game, but like it's enough to start getting stuff. So yeah, I'd really, really, really like to make sure we got that right. So if any of that comes up, just give me a yell.
I have one last question about PoE 2, and then I have a few quick fire questions about PoE 1, and then we're done. How do you feel about the removal of clear speed, things like Herald of Ice, but then sort of adding it back in with effectively a few players are telling me the Lightning Strike and Aroa effectively just swaps it from Herald of Ice to the Rowan and the Lightning Strike?
Well,
I imagine still wanting to play PoE 1.
I don't know whether or not the balance of those is correct, quite frankly.
It's not quite like there's probably misbalance here, 100%, but it's not quite the same as what the Heralds were doing. But it is still a balance anomaly for sure. Like I certainly have people playing, know people who are playing Lightning Archers right now, and they're like, why am I suffering like this? I'm going to swap to Lightning Spear. Which I assume is what you meant.
Root 2 made me promise to ask that.
Yeah, so look, it's pretty clear. It is the #1 played build right now is Lightning Spear Amazon, and for good reason, right? Like, it wasn't the intention to be like we removed this thing and added this thing. That isn't intentional. That it ends up playing that strongly and that powerfully, and it's like a clear like. I mean, just use it and the whole screen implodes, right?
I feel like
the trouble we have now
everything's faster now.
Like, you know, this is what people are doing now.
Yeah.
And we nerf that. Like, you know.
No, that's fair.
The answer is usually that we can't very easily.
That's fair.
So, you know.
This map is Giga AIDS. Holy shit. With all these shield guys.
A few PoE 1 questions, and then
so bad.
nothing. Do we have a rough estimate at all for 326?
I mean, are we telling people? Have we said anything about that?
Yeah, I think we were like, I think last we said was A and around that territory, or at least towards the latter half of May.
You cut out.
No, sorry, I said nothing.
No!
I was just pretending. No, towards the end of May was what we last said, and the intention is still that is currently on track. Obviously, all these things are kind of like, you know, up to within a 2-week kind of band, because, you know, things happen. That being said, if you're not hearing about things by the end of May, or at least, then I'd be very, very surprised. You should be, for sure.
Cool.
Should be right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any chance of WST in PoE 1? Have you thought more about it?
It's not really a question of thinking about it. It's a question of like, I mean, I would put it in tomorrow if we could.
Yeah.
The problem is that the character rigs are just not set up for it. And so I will just mention like kind of like the long-term plan here. So once every microtransaction from PoE 1 works in PoE 2,
these fucking shield guys are gonna get me killed.
At that point, it will mean that we could then port the character rigs from PoE 2 back to PoE 1 and rig the old character models and items onto them. And that would then mean that we would have access to the animation library and everything that we have in PoE 2 in PoE 1, which would then mean that we could put WASD in, basically.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that like in the but this will take a while, right? But like in the long term, this can happen. But like it would effectively we always sort of imagined that we would take the PoE 2 character rigs and port them back to PoE 1 once the microtransaction had all been ported over.
Yeah.
But it requires 100%. Obviously, we can't turn a microtransaction off in PoE 1 you already bought. So like therefore we have to wait until we've got full compatibility before we can do that.
Another thing is like incentivized to make change. And the reason for that is
that we have to rig everything to all the stupid PoE 1 character models
we have to
every time.
Yeah.
So the moment that we can finally get rid of those PoE 1 character models, like character rigs, that means that it just reduces our workload a crap ton. So and then at that point we could add WS.
We've got a pretty large rigging department right now, and they are spending probably the majority of their life all rigging microtransactions to PoE 2 characters right now.
So this game is rigged. I fucking knew it, dude.
So I mean, eventually it will get to the point where that is the case.
Cool. I have the same question, but with pausing. So for PoE 1.
That one, I think that they even tried to do that.
It was almost there.
It was almost there, and then there was like a couple of things. So, like,
good.
It is our intention to get that in.
Awesome.
You can pause the PoE on now too.
Another thing that I really love in PoE 2, the highlight effect. Like when I right-click a transmute and it shows like what items this works on. It's really nice quality of life.
Right. Well, I mean, there shouldn't be any reason we can't do that, right? Should be fine. I mean, I don't.
That's the boss already.
Yeah, should be fine. Yeah,
I
we
mean,
can
stuff
probably
like
do
that. 100%. It's either we're just not going to. Won't.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want it to happen.
Cool.
Sure.
Final question is: Val orbs in PoE 2 can change the magnitude of unique items. Is that something we could ever see in PoE 1?
Well, the amount of work that it would take. So here's the thing, right? Like that for every unique. We, have manual work to do to work out what to do there.
Yeah.
And obviously in PoE 2, given that there weren't all the uniques made already, like, we were able to do
this is
that.
where like not having capped reses is
I'm not going to
really
say
rough.
never in PoE 1, but just the amount of work
like
it would take
hardcore,
to look at the
no
balance
way.
of every single
I would
unique
step
and
foot
do that
into a
work would be
I
quite large.
Most would take only like 2 seconds and would
only
Sure,
blue
but
level
there's,
1
like,
maps until
implications
you
for a lot
get
of-
capped
Yeah.
reses. Although I'm pretty sure a lot of this is chaos damage.
There's just a lot of uniques in PoE 1.
Who's dying yet? Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly pretty like low
That
defense
was
right now.
that was all the questions
don't
I
have
had.
shit.
Thank you so much for taking time to do this. I know this was super welcome by me and the community. We really appreciate it. I know it was a bit combative today, but I promise it's from love for the game.
Well, actually,
and,
so at the beginning, I obviously got out of bed on the wrong side of the bed this morning because I was feeling a little bit anxious, probably more than I should have done, and I apologize for that because that was probably not great. But I don't know, for whatever reason, I just kind of as I said, was just feeling a bit earlier,
I appreciate it. I actually, compared to most, I think we came out of this one with like here's like actually like 15 changes we're just going to go make like immediately, which is awesome. And some we knew about, some we didn't, and some and a whole bunch of discussion. So like
Hardcore scared of the changes. Yeah, that's why I didn't like restart
hardcore. I feel very, very good about honestly, and I'm hoping we can get all those a lot of those changes.
If possible, I can, but like
obviously it'll help. But like
it takes a lot of practice.
It is
knowing what stats you need and when and what bosses and monsters do,
just creating that collaborative environment between
when to
developer and
fight
player
or
base
flight and that kind of shit.
Using users as the intermediary, and I'm
Somebody's
sure
just gonna
there's
kill
been
you at
into
some
yourself.
point
You're part of that, but
if you don't
it
know,
is very
and then you
important that
start
we
and
keep
try
doing
again.
this because
You play a shit ton of softcore and then
create
you go
greatness.
hardcore.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you guys coming here. I've actually like as a
fun at
rule
the
for
start,
my
though, 'cause it doesn't
podcast,
cost
I
you
actually
anything,
took
right?
something
If you die,
Jonathan
you
said
just
to
keep
heart
So I'm
really,
glad they
really
changed
hard
that.
that I really liked. And you said that you really liked when the interviewer like when it's their questions and not just on behalf of others, because they're able to do better follow-ups and stuff. So I've tried hard to focus on that as well, that it's things that I am able to do follow-ups on. So, but yeah, thank you guys so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, and thank everyone for watching and playing.
We appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, all right.
Whew.
All right, let's rewatch that entire
Try
thing
to
now.
die.
It's been a while, Trent.